Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for being here, for joining us. My name is Ashley Dwyer. I'm the Director of Internships and Career Services with the Rockefeller College. I'm here joined by my colleague Joan Marceau as well. And we're really excited to connect with you guys today to talk about networking, building a circle of contacts. The intent of this presentation is to be more introductory as it pertains to networking. But we'll certainly touch on several relevant aspects of networking tips. What is networking? How can you strategies, ways you can implement your networking moving forward. And of course, we'll take questions, any questions pertaining to networking, either at the end, preferably, or during if it's a pressing question too. So.
Yeah, and feel free to just put them in the chat and I'll keep an eye on those there. So
Absolutely. Thank you. So little overview, we'll go over what is networking. Like I said, benefits of networking, who should you network with specifically? That's always, especially when you're getting started with networking, that's always a kind of a hot topic and question. Types of networking, strategies, elevator pitch, virtual online networking, as well as follow-up communication. Just a little overview. So what is networking, right? Everyone has kind of a sense of what it is, but getting more detailed into what does it actually consist of and how can you start to think about networking for yourself as you progress in your career. So ultimately, networking is about relationships and relationship building and communication. So it's about building those effective relationships, professional relationships that require consistent communication. Networking is never about one point of contact. It's never about just reaching out to a company one time and expecting them to remember who you are a year or two later, right? You definitely have to put the work in to build those connections, those quality and genuine connections. So that's really ultimately what it comes down to. So it definitely requires you to put yourself out there a little bit as it pertains to both in-person and virtual networking options in order to have the ability to make these connections to people and resources, right? So it's not only about the connections you make to individuals, right, and resources, but also the people that they know as well. It can be multifaceted and extensive in the sense that you can make a connection to somebody who could then connect you to one of their connections. So that's really the power of networking. It is so critical and crucial in pursuing internship and job opportunities. Even me, myself, knew Joan on some capacity coming into this position, right? Having those kind of relationships connecting through organizations is really not just critical, but it's helpful. It helps you in, feeling more confident in your networking, building connections to gain more knowledge of in the industry, but also as you progress through job opportunities, right? So it's really creating and building that base of contacts and information. And then of course, from there, once you have that base, it will just continue to grow and grow. So like I said, there's the consistency of communication is really important, but it's never just about that initial point of contact. It's also like second points of contact, follow-up, outreach, additional outreach, etc. So it should be mutually beneficial as well. So when reaching out to potential alumni or employers who are relevant to your field, it's not just about how they can help you, right? Because what is their investment in helping you if they know nothing about you, right? So it's definitely about also what can you contribute or offer to the conversation or to the relationship as well. So you have to look at it from that standpoint, similar to personal relationships, right? So what are the benefits? Obviously, there's many, some of which I've touched on, but you have the ability to develop and establish a diverse, authentic, and professional circle of contacts and professional networks. So you just expand your connections to individuals or people, not only locally or potentially beyond, but within your industry, outside of your industry. It gives you exposure to different industries, topics, people, things, expertise, knowledge. So it really allows you to kind of develop and establish that network and gain valuable information and insight. Like I said, not only into industry, but also knowledge, trends, advice, meeting new people, hearing their stories. I even remember myself when I was pursuing grad school and deciding which program to go to, having conversations with people who worked in higher education was pretty monumental in helping me make a decision to pursue higher education. So even having those conversations with colleagues, friends, and then ultimately the main goal is for it to lead to potential job and internship leads as well. So I really, on top of that, networking is one of those things where, it's almost like a sport. The more you do it, the more you practice it, the more you engage in it, the more confident you're going to feel in it. So as you engage in networking, it's going to enhance those interpersonal skills that will enable you to gain the confidence when you're in these environments, right? Become more relaxed, less pressured, etc. So how do you start building your network? This is one of the more common questions I've received in the past in career services is, where do I start? I'm a younger student. I don't know anyone. I haven't had a lot of experience. So where do I begin? Well, that's where starting with the personal is really helpful, right? Especially in that particular situation. So while some of you may still be building that experience, knowledge, and network, right? You still have a personal network that you can tap into that can be valuable, right? So your personal relatives and extended family, not to mention friends, their parents, their family, friends, neighbors. You might be surprised at certain personal connections you have that are in the same industry as you're interested in, or in similar industries too. That might be valuable conversations to have. Those people might have current internships available, for example, or may know of other companies that they would recommend and can help point you in that direction. So you can see from there the reach that networking can have, even with personal connections. So that's one way to begin. Professional connections, obviously. So former and current employers, coworkers, especially past internships, obviously. And then, we always encourage students to engage in professional associations and affiliations as well. So, those are organizations external to the college, sometimes internal, but a lot of times external to the institution, where you can connect with them for conferences or membership meetings to gain knowledge and information and, just expand your network. Joan and I are involved in many professional organizations, external to Rockefeller, that help us gain lots of great insight into the industry and connections with other colleagues in career services and within public affairs and policy. So it's really a fantastic way to network too, in which you can initiate that engagement. So don't be, don't be intimidated by that. That's there to help you grow your network. So certainly there's professional connections, and then academic too. A lot of times students don't think to consider that they have amazing and excellent resources right at their fingertips. So for example, teachers and faculty who worked in the industry you're interested in and have great insights or recommendations for potential opportunities, or just simply advice, not to mention coaches, administrators like Joan and myself, classmates, club and organization members, right? So these are great resources for you too, from a networking standpoint. And then certainly Rockefeller alumni, and even UAlbany alumni too, because I know we have not just Rockefeller students potentially on this call, so UAlbany alumni as well. That's a network in and of itself, right? So you have the ability to connect with alumni through UAlbany and Rockefeller, not only through resources like LinkedIn, right, but also through our alumni relations department on campus, UCAN, which is our UAlbany Career Advisory Network. So we'll touch on that towards the end as well. So obviously you don't know those contacts as well, but you do have that commonality of UAlbany/Rockefeller, which helps bridge the gap, right? Many alumni are very invested in helping current students progress in their career because they were once in your shoes as well. So types of networking, this is quite simple, but essentially there's event-based, right? So events that are both in person and virtual, right? So we have a few career fairs coming up. I know the business fair is tomorrow. So that's an in-person career fair. That's a really exciting way to engage with employers. And a lot of our career fairs coming up are more in person, which is fantastic to help engage in that way. But many employers will host their own little career fairs or information sessions that are both, virtual and in person. So in-person, virtual events, not to mention just virtual online connections through resources like LinkedIn, like I talked about. And then informational interviews. We're not going to go into detail with informational interviews today, but we will, and we certainly can address any questions on that as well. So just elaborating on event-based networking. So basically types of events to meet people, as I mentioned, include career fairs, professional events, sometimes receptions, mixers. So sometimes the college here, for example, will have, I think we had a welcome back picnic for Rockefeller students a few weeks ago. Most of us attended that to connect with the students and the other, administrators and faculty. So basically, if you're in a internship or a job that offers those types of things, sometimes it can be easy to say, you know what, I'm tired, I've had a long day, I don't want to do that necessarily, or I maybe, can't. Sometimes there's going to be conflicts, and that's okay. But should you have the opportunity to do those kind of things in internships or jobs, especially relevant to your career, those are very important and helpful to participate in, because they can help you build networks, your networking contacts, and show that you're really invested in the work that you're doing and the relationships that you're building in the organization. So internship, work events, meetings, similar to receptions, mixers, those are all types of events where you can engage in this event-based networking. It is important to know that networking can really happen anywhere and with anyone, even classmates. So you never know when you're going to be in a setting with another professional or a faculty or a student who is in a similar path to you and might have some valuable insight, or might be able to connect with you on potential opportunities. So you do want to make sure you're presenting yourself professionally, in most of those environments, obviously, but that you're prepared. And the more you engage in this networking, the more confident and prepared you'll feel with all of that. They can be formal or informal environments. They're mostly more formal, but that doesn't mean they don't exist in more informal environments too. Really important that these connections are honest and intentional. The best connections are genuine and honest anyway. So really kind of showing that genuine interest, not only in connecting with someone for how they can benefit you, but just connecting with someone to connect with something, learn about their path, gain advice, really connect with them on their story, and that can lead to bigger and better things. And then diverse connections inside and outside of your field are critical. You never know if you don't disregard a potential network or a conversation just because it doesn't directly connect with your particular career goals. You never know if that might open up doors, or to other possible interests within your field, or just learning about somebody's story. Be open-minded when it comes to networking. Can really, be beneficial. So just some strategies for success, prior to an event, during and after an event, but overall strategies as a whole as well. Prepare, do your research. That makes it a little bit less daunting. So look up let's say you're invited to an event coming up, or an open event, like a career fair even. Let's use a career fair as an example with tomorrow's fair. Look up either the RSVP guest list or the employer list in this particular case, right? You'll see a full list of the employers participating in this career fair tomorrow. Do a little research. Obviously, in this case, you'll mainly have information to the company's organizations, but you may even have some insight into potential contacts attending for those companies. So I'd first and foremost do some research into those companies' organizations. So look at their company website, look at them on LinkedIn. There's a wealth of information on LinkedIn as well. That's not just written content, but also visual content too, with videos, things of that nature, to get a sense into the company culture, the opportunities, etc. So using resources like LinkedIn, like the company website, even resources like Glassdoor can be really helpful for that. Should you have access to potential representatives attending with those companies, you can look up those individual folks on LinkedIn as well. Get some insight into their potential career path. Obviously, you're not going to know everything, and going into these events, you're going to learn a lot of information. you know, about the organization and the individuals just simply by talking to them and asking questions. But if you go in with a little bit of understanding of their mission or their projects or the potential opportunities, it shows them you're invested, you care, and you've done your research, which is really critical. So review all those event emails for important details, right? What's the time of the event, right? What's the location? Is there potential parking options? What's the dress code, expectations, etc. The career fair is a longer event. Most of them are typically a little bit longer. I think they're 10 to 3, but you might be invited to a networking event that's only like an hour or 2 hours, right? So you wouldn't want to be super late to that event because you maybe are a little ill prepared in finding the location in advance. So do the night before, look at all these details to have a real sense of that so you're prepared going into it. And then look up relevant topics to discuss too, especially relevant to the companies, organizations you're interested in, right? So news, media, et cetera, like what relates to your interest with that company. I know with career fairs in particular, I'll just mention this, it can be a little daunting, right? You have lots of companies there to review. And I've always told students in the past, you do not need to do research on all 60 companies, for example. You can if you have the capacity and interest to do so, but it's not expected that you'll be able to stop at all 60 tables, or you likely interested in all 60 companies, organizations. So really just pinpoint and target maybe the 5 to 10, 15 max or whatever companies, organizations that you're really hoping to kind of catch at that event. So those are the ones you can target in your research. It makes it a little bit more manageable too. And maybe you will pop through a table, you know, that you were not anticipating, and that's okay too. You don't have to have all the research done for that in that situation. Dress appropriately, professionally. That gives off that really strong first impression. We're moving towards a more casual workplace in many industries, which is fine, but you know, and you might find that some of the representatives at the career fair are dressing a little bit more casually. And I've always joked with students, well, they have a job, you're still trying to attain that position, right? So they're in a position where they're aligning with the cultural expectations for dress. So it will just tell them you're taking this very seriously if you come dressed very professionally, just to show that. Gather your business cards or update your LinkedIn, right? So if you have business cards, great. It's not totally required because you can still swap contact information with the employers. They'll likely have business cards and you can also connect with them on LinkedIn. That's the beauty of LinkedIn. But if you have them, great. Practice your elevator pitch, and we'll talk about that shortly. And then certainly schedule an appointment with us or the main career office, as well as use virtual platforms to prepare in advance. You know, so those can be super helpful as well. Oops. Okay, my apologies. So the elevator pitch, speaking of which, you know, so what is an elevator speech, right? It's one of those terms that most people know, but not everyone knows what they entail. And so, or what it entails. So it's commonly known as a 30-second commercial about yourself. I think it originally, or it originated initially from, you know, a person being in an elevator with like a CEO of a company wanting to pitch themselves and their interest in the potential organization and position. And they had about, you know, somewhere between 15 and 30 seconds to do so within that elevator ride. So that's where it originated initially. But it's a quick commercial about yourself, and it's meant to be quick because sometimes, especially at events like career fairs, you don't have all the time in the world to kind of express yourself and articulate an overview of who you are, right? So, and your interest and your engagement. So it's good to practice this, to know what it is you should be saying so that you can come prepared to do so in a more concise manner. Provide that short description of you, your qualifications, your interests, and your current involvement. So this is an example of an elevator pitch. Hello, my name is blank. I'm a student at University at Albany studying, let's say, economics, and will graduate in May 2024. I'm hoping to pursue full-time opportunities in my area post-graduation. I'm interested in this specific aspect, maybe, you know, consulting or, you know, whatever area sector that is. And currently I'm interning, or I previously interned or even volunteered or had a position here. You know, you could even add something into that. I read a little bit about this, about your organization. That was really interesting to me. I wondered if you could elaborate on that, or what is it that you're really looking for out of a candidate, for example. So those are some ways you can kind of articulate that. It doesn't have to be verbatim, right? It should be very much tailored to you and what it is you want to know from the organization. I see a question in the chat, so I'll probably get to them at the end, but continuing with some strategies for success and overcoming fear, right? Because fear is a very real thing when it comes to networking. Networking, and it's definitely a normal thing. So during the event, make sure body language is really important. I'm going to start with that. Having a confident handshake. It doesn't have to be the firmest handshake in the world. And I know we've kind of moved away in this post-COVID world to shaking hands all the time. I was actually doing that pre-COVID when I was finding myself sick often from shaking hands a lot. So you don't have to shake hands. Be aware of that body language to see if somebody would like to shake hands. And if you're sensing that they don't, you can just simply say, hi, and my name is, so-and-so. But if you do, having a confident, firm handshake, is the individual, are you actively engaged in the conversation, right? So making sure you have a, engaging and strong posture stance, read facial expressions. Eye contact is critical to show that you're engaged and not distracted. Be confident, smile, engage. That's what puts people's nerves at ease, so. And with that whole distraction component, it's important to actively listen, be present, and try to remember details of certain conversations, or at least to write them down after the fact. So acknowledge a key point and add to the conversation, jot down notes, like I said, for follow-up communication purposes, but try to avoid using your phone as well during these events too much, because that can be very distracting and that can give off the impression that you're not as present or invested or interested. Throughout that whole process, it's so important that you introduce yourself with confidence, with a smile. Be prepared for open-ended questions and to address some open-ended questions as well. So. During the event, continue some things you want to avoid. Like I said, talking about one of the things I said, I think I have it in here somewhere, is to, avoid using your phone too much focus on your phone. That can just lead to those distractions, lack of investment, lack of interest. Avoid interruptions or assertively inserting yourself into the conversation. There might be slight interruptions, and that's okay, but try to avoid that being too, I guess aggressive, for lack of a better word. Avoid having hands full with food, beverage. You're going to go to a lot of these events and notice that there's food, beverage options, which you're totally entitled to have some food and beverage, but just be cognizant. Maybe take a break to eat if you need to, or if you're going to be networking while holding that, just make sure you have one hand free to be able to shake a hand or engage, or things of that nature.
Ashley?
Yes.
Ashley, can I share? This was one of my post-COVID tips, because before COVID, we always talked about doing either beverage or food one at a time. So you've got a free hand. If you get really experienced, you can hold a drink in your fingers and have your plate on your palm, but that takes a lot of practice, and I wouldn't try that at a networking event. But one of the things that I have discovered by going to in-person events post-COVID is, if you do not feel comfortable shaking hands, one thing you can do is actually have something in each hand, and then people will just not shake your hand.
That's true.
So that's a new twist on an old trick that can work in your favor in a new world.
That's a really good point. That's true. I've even found in this post-COVID world, in some networking events, that they'll even have some sort of wristbands to indicate your level of comfort in COVID, whether you want physical, touch through handshakes or no. I mean, that's not true at every event, but that's a really good trick for the ones that don't address the post-COVID protocol at the event with certain indicators. It's a good tip. Thanks, Joan. Okay, so then also try to avoid only talking to one person or the people you're comfortable with. That can be a real easy mistake, because it's easier to talk to people you're comfortable with, right? It's a lot easier. Try to engage with new people. I used to run career fairs myself, and I would often see groups of friends coming together and only talking to each other and barely talking to the representatives because they're comfortable that way. And I understand you're entitled to have like a support system with you at a networking event, but make sure that you're not just engaging with that support system. That's the point of networking. We're building new relationships. We're building upon existing relationships, but we're very much also creating new relationships.
Ashley,
Yeah, go ahead.
Ashley, another tip with that is I have also encouraged students to do buddy networking. So like if you're there with a buddy, go together to meet new people.
Yes, that's true. That can be helpful as well, especially someone who's in a similar field to you, right? Because then you're both gaining mutually beneficial information for sure. That can make it a little less
At least for the first 20 minutes of the event,
yes,
until you get a little confidence.
yes. I've even walked a few students up to tables to just introduce them and get the conversation started. So don't hesitate if you're feeling super nervous to come up to people like myself, Joan, or the other career office representatives to ask about that or inquire about tips or support for sure. Yeah, because it can be nerve-wracking and daunting. That's fair. That's a common feeling, that pushing yourself outside that comfort zone and utilizing resources and supports will help you do that. Avoid overzealous self-promotion, right? You do want to be confident, but you want to avoid being arrogant, right? So, articulating your skills and your accomplishments in a confident way, almost to the extent of proving an argument rather than selling yourself too hard, right? So that can be helpful to look at it in that capacity. And then avoid engaging in CLM, which is career limiting moves. For example, drinking too much, right? You want to give off your best professional presence and not do anything that would, create limitations for you in your career. Oh. And then strategies for success, overcoming fear after the event. You're not expected to remember every detail from your conversations and networking. So certainly I've seen students go up to tables, have a conversation, maybe step off to the side for a minute, jot down a few quick notes, or maybe you can retain that so that after the event, you can write down several notes for several organizations. Certainly write notes, either behind the business cards you've gathered, or maybe on a notepad or in a padfolio, that's fine too, or even on the back of your resume if you didn't hand it out, that's okay as well. Ultimately, just having those notes available to you so that the next day when the networking event is over and you've had a minute to breathe, you don't recall every single detail, you have a reference point for that. I wouldn't wait until the next day though. I would at the very least do it following the event, so it's when it's fresh in your mind. Follow-up communication is key. I'm going to stress that a little bit later on, but sending an email with a reintroduction, right? You have to remember these employers are meeting, especially at a career fair, for example, a lot of students, a lot. I used to work with companies who met with 70 students in one 3-hour event. So send that email with that reintroduction, thanking them for their time and possibly setting up follow-up meetings. This is an extreme example, but I have had conversations with employers at career fairs. I remember there was an accounting firm in particular at one of my previous institutions where they had said we met with 80 students, but only 4 of them sent a follow-up thank you note. So we're going to push them through the application process. That's not always the case, but it can sometimes be. It definitely is going to show them that you're invested and you're interested, right? And they're going to take note, especially in circumstances like that. And it can sometimes help advance your application for sure. So those follow-up thank you notes following a career fair, for example, or even just, let's say you have a informational interview on LinkedIn, sending a follow-up thank you note is still helpful, and it still shows that you're appreciative of their time and their insight. So that follow-up communication is critical. And you want to complete that, also for the purpose of any cross introductions that they can make for you to other contacts in their network, or that you can help them with as well. Again, mutually beneficial. Remember to send those connection requests to individuals you meet with at career fairs and events pretty quickly after the event through LinkedIn too. LinkedIn's almost like your online portal of networking connections, right? So it's important to do that so then you can re-access those people in the future, maybe start conversations. You can even send a quick, direct message through LinkedIn too, thanking them as well. I can't stress organization enough. If you're someone like me, I have to, jot it down on my calendar or put it within, a certain document or spreadsheet pretty quickly after, so I can keep track and recall that information. So keep track of your efforts, have a little spreadsheet, to include key contacts, networks that you made, where you met them, what was the event, important details, any potential positions, notes from your conversation. So this will all help in that follow-up communication piece. That communication aspect is so critical. So virtual networking, very much a strong possibility, especially post-COVID. Like it says here, the fastest growing form of professional networking, for sure. It's definitely a very efficient form. What I will say about virtual networking, while it's extremely accessible and efficient, it's more important than ever to make sure that you are engaged in virtual networking, because you're not face to face. So where you can, or where it's applicable, and I don't mean to say this for the purposes of this particular presentation, because I'm noticing many of you have your video off and mute on. That's fine for this particular presentation. But for other virtual information sessions with employers, events, try to turn your camera on, try to turn your, eventually your mute off, ask questions, smile. That body language through virtual options is just as important, if not more important, because you're not face to face. So it just shows them you're engaged. So while it's the fastest and more efficient form of it, that engagement piece is equally important. Limitless possibilities. There's no geographical boundaries, which makes it great. So let's say a company in New York City is promoting several positions. They have a virtual information session. That's an amazing opportunity for you to connect with recruiters from New York City, from that company, to learn, right, about their opportunities. Like make new connections, reconnect with people, maintain connections. It's just a great way to continue to do that. And like I said, professionalism, engagement, even more important. And LinkedIn is one of the main forms to connect virtually from at least a consistent communication standpoint. So on that point of LinkedIn, a little overview of LinkedIn. We're not going to go into great detail on profiles and the use of LinkedIn now, but we will do an overview, and we'll be happy to address any questions. And we do plan to do a more advanced networking session in the spring, so stay tuned. So a little overview of LinkedIn. You can send connection requests, obviously, to people you meet immediately or shortly after meeting them. But you can also, and this is not always totally apparent, send connection or follow, I should say, not connection requests, but follow and stay engaged with individual company accounts on LinkedIn too. So every company, organization, or I should say most, have accounts on LinkedIn, just like you and I do as individuals, right? So there's a wealth of information on those company pages, and following those company pages not only populates that information into your newsfeed to keep you apprised of that, but it also very much, it will show the employer that you're invested in them. It will keep you connected to that network. So it's an excellent way to show that investment and interest. You want to update your individual profile and review the professional profiles of others as you're doing so, or even just for additional information. So if you meet people at a career fair, if you know of a representative attending a career fair, looking at their profile in advance will give you a sense of like, oh, I didn't know that they graduated from Albany. That's interesting. Let me talk to them about that at the career fair, right? So that's always a helpful tool as well. Like I said, you can gain a lot of research and information about companies and individuals. Not to mention there's that UAlbany alumni connection, as well as we have a specific group for Rockefeller College of Public Affairs and Policy, alumni and friends. Love how they say alumni and friends. It's very welcoming. And you can connect with other relevant LinkedIn groups as well. LinkedIn also has LinkedIn Learning, which are additional sessions and information and trainings on various topics that can be very helpful. Not to mention, I know that at one of the career fairs we're hosting, the CRCC Career and Internship Fair, we'll have a free LinkedIn photo booth. That's in November, stay tuned. But I'm not sure about the other fairs. I'm sure there are photo booths incorporated into some of them for business. And do you know that?
Yeah,
Jen?
they
Okay.
typically do at the UAlbany career fairs as well. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great chance to get a free professional headshot.
exactly.
You're already dressed up. You just have to sit in a chair and smile. So that's great because you could take it on your own, but why not have a professional do it for free? So strong impact on the hiring process. I was just meeting with a student today, talking to them about how updating their profile is helpful and important because recruiters often use LinkedIn to source candidates. So they're also very much accessing the site for those purposes. I'll just touch on the profile. We'll go into more detail at a later date, but yes, if for your profile in particular, that photo is really important. Certainly having a cover photo is helpful too. It just kind of rounds out your profile. Typically, students will have a variety of different types of cover photos. I've seen a lot of current students use photos, kind of backdrops similar to Joan and I of the college, which you're welcome to do. I've had students use ones that are more reflective of their career goals. I had a student do one of the New York City skyline, the city line, because they wanted to work in New York City, or one more relevant to their industry. That's certainly fine as well. It could also be like more personal as well. That's fine. You want to have a strong headline, something that grabs the attention and indicates to potential employers or contacts where you're currently at and what you're interested in pursuing from a career goal standpoint. The summary is important too. It's the about section on LinkedIn. This should tell your story. Where are you from? Why did you choose this particular career path, or this particular degree program? What are some of your career goals? What are some of your interests? What do you hope to contribute to the field, and in what capacity? This could also, lead to personal reasons why you're pursuing, whatever you're comfortable with saying, but something to give them a snapshot of your story will help differentiate you from others in the industry or in the field too. Experiences, this usually includes jobs, that can be part-time, temporary, seasonal, that can be full-time, that could, and really any of those types of job opportunities, internships, club leadership, athletics, volunteer. I had a student ask me today, should I be including everything on LinkedIn? And it really depends on where you're at in your career process, right? So if you're newer, if you're a younger student still gaining that relevant experience, you might have more of your temporary seasonal positions for now. And then as you progress and gain more relevant internship or job experience, that might start to fall off, right? So you kind of gauge that similar to your resume. You can also separate your club leadership, athletic, volunteer into separate sections, or if it's relevant, if a volunteer experience, for example, was relevant to your career path, that could also fall within your work experience or your experience section on LinkedIn. Skills are important, indicating in particular more hard technical skills, but soft skills if you are still gaining some of those technical skill sets or hard or relevant skill sets. This helps people endorse you for those particular skill sets. So they're almost kind of embedded recommendations from others, right? It tells recruiters that you have those skill sets and other people are, kind of backing you on those skill sets. But recruiters also very much use LinkedIn to source candidates, right? So they might pull certain data based on skills or experiences, or information from profiles to see if you're a match for a position. And that's how they use certain algorithms to then reach out to you. So it's important to incorporate on LinkedIn many different skill sets, right? Because the recruiters are very much tapping into that in particular. And then create those separate sections where appropriate, like I said. So follow-up communication, I know we touched on it, but I just wanted to emphasize this. Very important that you ask for contact information. That can be an easy thing, especially if you don't have a business card and they forget to give you a business card. Oh, whoops, I left and I totally forgot to ask for their contact information. It might be something you can look up online, but if it's not publicly available, you definitely want to remind yourself, okay, I had a great conversation with this person. If they didn't give me a business card, I need to ask, like, what's the best way to connect with you? I'd love to stay in touch following this event. And they might say, oh, here's my email, stay in touch, or here's my business card, or connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you're a little uncomfortable with being like, hey, can I have your email address? That's how you can approach it. What's the best way to stay connected with you? I'd love to follow up and engage after the event. It usually, that follow-up communication should happen pretty swiftly after virtual or in-person networking events. I try to send communications that week at the very least, if not within 1 to 2 days following the event. That's why it's fresh in your mind. It's fresh in their mind too. So they will recall that as well. Definitely express that. I know it's not an interview per se, but it's equally important to express that gratitude for time, connection, any relevant or meaningful information. You know, certainly incorporate any particular, you know, points of interest, you know, that were like any similarities that you had, whether they were directly relevant to a company or not, you know, that's always a helpful way for them to remember you. Showing interest in it just shows that kind of level of interest and investment in staying connected with them. You can also attach your resume if you were discussing a potential position or application advice was discussed. That's something you can incorporate. Certainly feel free to ask that during the event too. Oh, would you like a copy of my resume? Or they might say, oh, why don't you go directly to the website to apply? That's how we're accepting resumes. But they might say, oh, but we'll be willing to give you any tips or advice, in which case you could still send it on, you know. So let them guide you in that conversation. So I think I had mentioned that UCAN in the beginning as well, and I wanted to come back and reference it here. So what is UCAN? And Joan can probably speak to this a little bit more, but it is the U Albany Career Advisory Network. I want to touch base and confirm, is that number correct for UCAN, Joan?
That's
Okay.
actually probably the old number. One of the things, UCAN has been around for years. I don't know, it predates me and I've been here 9 years. So I don't know how long we've had it, but it's a while. But the university recently changed the platform, like the vendor that provides the computer thing that powers it. They changed that last year. And in doing that, the alumni had to transfer over to the new one, and it gave them an opportunity to kind of update the list. So there's not currently 1,800, but what they've been doing since January when they launched the new platform is they've been reaching out to not only these original 1,800, but also other alumni to say, yeah, are you interested in still doing this? Or are you interested in being a contact for current students or recent grads? And so there's not quite as many involved right now, but the people who are involved have all recommitted to doing this since January. So it's a much more engaged group again, which has been kind of a nice positive outcome of the change to the new platform.
Quality over quantity.
Exactly.
Quality over quantity. Yeah, you'd rather have people who are going to respond to you and engage, and I'm sure they'll grow that as they continue to expand it. So, but it's, yeah, excellent. Thank you.
And it's a great resource. You can log in, just, you know, there's the website, but I literally go to the UAlbany website and I type UCAN in the search bar on our website and it pops up, and you go to the link and you log in as a student, and you can search for alums based on your career interests. If you have geographic interests, you're graduating and interested in moving to North Carolina and you want to see if we have some alums that are in Raleigh because you're looking at, you know, jobs there, you can reach out through the platform. So you don't have to disclose personal information. You just reach out right through the platform to email and connect with them. And then sometimes they will be willing to do an informational interview with you. They will be willing to review your resume, to just have a quick Zoom or phone conversation. So there's a lot of ways you can utilize this network.
Excellent. Thanks, Joan. And then this is the main contact for UCAN, Meg McCarthy. She's great. So you can feel free to connect with her. And like I said, we're not going into informational interviews really too much in this call, but that very much can help guide you as you connect with people through UCAN and LinkedIn. And we have a YouTube channel through Rockefeller that you can access with various videos, including this one shortly, and videos on informational interviews, updated ones in the spring too. So feel free to check it out as an additional resource. So what are some networking events? Like, what's next for you? What are some networking events that you can go to? And hopefully this presentation motivates you a bit with is certainly various employer information sessions that Rockefeller is hosting specifically. I'm sure the main UAlbany Career Office is hosting a slew of others, as well as other school business, etc. These are just a snapshot of some of the ones that we're hosting. Actually, next week we have the New York State Assembly for Grad Scholars Internship Program that we've been promoting, we'll continue to be promoting, not to mention another session with Deloitte, and then upcoming sessions in October with Comptroller, State Watch, Senate. We'll probably have some more, I'm hoping for, so as well. So, and definitely some in the spring, so stay tuned. But career fairs, I didn't incorporate the business one, but the business, I think internship and job fairs tomorrow, Wednesday the 13th, 10 to 3, Joan, I believe.
10 to 3 also, yep.
Excellent. You might have seen Joan yesterday at the prep event if you were there. For Rockefeller students in particular, the government nonprofit one is a great one to attend. That's also coming up Wednesday, September 27th, 10 to 3, Campus Center Ballroom. And then we are affiliated with the CRCC, which is the Capital Region Career Consortium, and we will be hosting a career and internship fair that's general, open to all majors, all class years. Looks like I am missing the date, but I'll update the presentation with that. But it is Thursday, November 2nd from 12 to 3 at the Sage Armory off campus. So we'll be providing details, more information about that, hopefully doing a pre-fair event for that as well. But great career fairs for you to engage in. I can't stress enough the importance of these. And as a person who used to run them regularly, I can just tell you firsthand, employers, you know, they are there to connect with you. They want to connect with you. So I know it can be daunting, and hopefully this presentation will help ease some of those nerves and fears, because they pay good money to be there and talk to you too. So they're there to help. They want to engage, they want to connect. Oftentimes these career fairs incorporate alumni of the institution, so it makes it a little bit easier as well to connect. Just some additional resources and services that we offer, both, you know, Rockefeller and also the main career office: career counseling, advisement, resume cover letter. You know, I just met with a student recently to prepare for the career fair with a resume. So those are good things to prepare in advance leading into networking sessions, particularly resumes, job internship, fellowship assistance, interview prep, mock interviews, job offer, salary negotiations, networking, like we said. Handshake is our career management platform used across the campus, job internship postings, event programs, career fairs, and more, all posted on the site. I think there's something like 18,000 to 20,000 postings at all times. So it's very much a good resource for you for internships and jobs as well. And as I mentioned, this is the link to our YouTube channel. So we will follow up tomorrow with the recording to this session and presentation slides, as well as some additional resources like ways you can schedule appointments with us in the main career office too. This is us, a little bit about us here at Rockefeller College Office of Career Development. I am located downtown. I'm in 105, 105A. Joan is uptown, Humanities B16. You can reach out to us. The best way to connect with us is through our general email. I know some of you have connected with us directly too, that's fine. Is our website, our phone number as well. That's a downtown phone number. I don't know if that's the uptown, but I don't believe it is, but that's okay. You can schedule an appointment with us through Handshake. There's myself, Joan. We have 2 fantastic graduate assistants. You can schedule appointments with them. We also have drop-in hours with all 4 of us too. Not to mention the main career office at the UAlbany campus that serves students outside of Rockefeller, also very much a great resource for you as well.